Good morning and welcome to the WAVY Digital Desk. We're here today for Domestic Violence Awareness Month to talk about some local resources that are right here in the area, whether you know about them, whether you have not heard about them before and want to know more about their resources. Kiahnna Patterson has been covering domestic violence stories and resources for years, and this is just another platform that she is going to be taking her reporting. So thank you so much for everyone for joining us today and for tuning in. Kiahnna.
Hey, yep. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our conversation, our community chat, and thank you, Sarah, for inviting us as well. With us, we have Sanu Dang with Transitions Family Violence Services based in Hampton. They serve the entire peninsula, so if you need help on the peninsula, you can reach out to Transitions. And on the south side, we have Robin Gauthier. She's with Samaritan House in Virginia Beach, and they serve the entire south side over there. So thank you, ladies, for joining us. Thank you for always working with us on the Domestic Violence Break the Cycle series and getting the word out there, but really thank you for helping the survivors in our area. I know that the calls have been up since the pandemic and even before then, but we really are seeing an increase in deadly domestic violence, especially from the news angle. So we wanted to have this conversation with the community to open it up to see what survivors need in our area. So we're going to start with Sanu, and then we're going to go to Robin, if that's okay, and then we'll switch it up. But Sanu, tell us what survivors need and then how you guys are serving them.
Absolutely. So thank you for having us. Our greatest need is housing on the peninsula. We have a lack of affordable housing stock here, which makes it extremely difficult as we service families that are fleeing from abusive situations. We're able to offer the emergency housing, but then there's that time where they need to transition. And when they're not able to transition into a home that they can sustain, then that's where we find that, we're not able to assist additional folks. We're seeing longer length of stays. And that, it's just a trickle down effect. And we've seen that since COVID, where, we have spillover where we're able to use hotels and motels. And that is extremely costly because we don't want to turn anyone away. But the housing market, something has to change. So I would say, landlords that are able to reduce their rents, to work with your local domestic violence agency, work with us on the peninsula so that we could safely house individuals and make sure that they can sustain housing and they don't find themselves in a vulnerable situation where, they have to go back to the abusive situation because they can't afford to sustain living on their own.
And Robin, same question. What are you all seeing in Virginia Beach? And then how can people in the community help survivors?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Sanu. Affordable housing has been an issue for a very long time since I've been doing this work. Housing in Virginia Beach is extremely expensive, and probably more than half of victims that come to our emergency shelter are from Virginia Beach, and they want to stay in Virginia Beach. They want to have their kids stay in the same school. Their support system is here, and it's very, very expensive. Some of our survivors of violence end up moving to other cities that are a little less expensive because that's all they can afford. They may not have their child support in place yet, or they may not be getting child support at all if they're single, and housing is extremely expensive. But I would also say we are sort of in a crunch where we need staffing. We are understaffed and under-resourced. Just trying to answer all of the domestic violence hotline calls is difficult. We have to be staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we need hotline staff. We need staff to answer those calls and assess situations, deal with crisis. We can have volunteers do that as well. But we are really understaffed. We have several vacancies that we need to fill. So we want to be able to continue those 24-hour services for our survivors. But to do that, we need staffing.
And has the need gone up, or have you all had less, offerings for help?
The need has gone up exponentially, unfortunately, especially during COVID. The rate at which we're seeing survivors and assisting survivors is it's record breaking. And I think it's really important for us to, like Robin said, that the staffing and folks getting involved and volunteering with your local agency. We need your help. We can't carry the burden alone as just a single nonprofit to do this work. We need all of our community partners. We need our civic organizations. We need our churches. Make us your mission. And I know we have some great partners already, but we really need the help. It's a community issue, and it takes a community response.
Absolutely. Domestic violence impacts us all, whether we realize it or not. When I was talking with the Her Shelter CEO, Olivia Smithberger, she says, give if you can, but just call the shelter and say, what do you need? It sounds like you guys are saying the same thing. Just say, how can I help? So let's backtrack a little bit. If you or someone is in an abusive relationship, what are some of those red flags that people need to be looking for? Because it's not always physical. I know it starts off usually verbal and then arguments, things like that. What do you all see, and what are those red flags that people need to be looking for? I'll start with Robin this time, and then we'll go to Sanu.
Yeah, so any form of control. So domestic violence is all about control. And so if someone is trying to limit who you can see, where you can spend your money, what family you see, what family activities you take place of, trying to isolate you, any form of control is usually the beginning of seeing the signs of domestic violence and the red flags. It can definitely be verbal. It can definitely be financial. It can be physical or not physical, but we see any form of control over one person over another is the beginning signs or red flags of domestic violence.
Yeah, I would just add, in our society, there's this stigma and shame about being alone, right? And sometimes we are in relationships and it's not all of what we want it to be. It doesn't have all of the standards that we know that it should have, that we deserve. And so I would just encourage folks that are in the beginning of a relationship to take your time. We've seen a lot of love bombing, someone that is just overly flattering, always around you, saying all the right things, and just and that could be healthy, right? But it also can turn to a situation where someone is positioning themselves to control you and have power over you. And so just taking your time in those relationships and really getting to know who that person is, and making sure that they're not isolating you from your social groups and your family. We always tell some of our younger clients, being in a relationship, that person should add to you, not take away from you. Mm-hmm. If you see that some of the things that you've enjoyed doing start to wither and go away, then maybe that's not someone that complements who you are and the relationship that you deserve, because it shouldn't change. Something about you initially attracted them to you, and you should be able to remain as that individual.
And, going into it, I guess, as a person who is observing signs, is it okay to take the approach to be, I guess, more maybe aggressive or more forthcoming with information when you see a situation, or are you waiting? Or how do you sort of meter, I guess, when to make that step in?
So as a family member or a friend, I think it's always important to be involved and be curious, right? And ask questions about, who that person is. And if you have concern, I'd rather a friend or a family member ask me about a concern opposed to just staying silent. There's so much silence that's associated with this violence that I'd rather, family members and friends ask those questions, of course, come from a sensitive place and from a loving and caring place. But yeah, if you see something, say something. Absolutely.
And I guess, in those situations, there are some domestic violence situations where somebody has taken, whether it's their spouse or taken someone to a different city or state to sort of live separately. I think with military communities, we might see some of that. In those situations where you might not have loved ones or might not have somebody that sees that baseline maybe behavior that you have, what's the best way in those communities, I guess, to sort of maybe look out for that?
Encourage and support anyone that you come in contact with. A lot of times people will go to their faith family, their church, their synagogue, their mosque, if they don't have friends or family in the area. And so, we really need to encourage and train the leaders in those communities to support victims of violence with giving them encouragement. If they're questioning whether they should leave a relationship or not, do a safety plan with them so that they know how to leave safely. Because, the most dangerous time for a victim is when they walk away from the relationship and the abuser has lost some power and control over someone. And that's usually when we see the severe bodily harm or we see the homicide of a victim. So that can be a very dangerous time. So be careful not to say, oh, just leave the situation. It's not that easy. It's very complex. That could put them in a very dangerous situation just to walk out and leave. You need to do a really, really good safety plan. And so anytime you're a bystander and you see violence happening, do your best to provide support and encouragement, I always say. If a victim chooses to leave or doesn't choose to leave, they still need your encouragement and your support.
I remember when I first started doing the Break the Cycle series back in 2019, one of the first survivors that I ever interviewed, she says, if someone comes to you and says, I think I'm in an abusive or toxic relationship, just say, I believe you. That opens the door for them to continue to talk and share with you. I was just about to ask Robin about safety planning. What does that look like? Because from what I've seen on the news side, it usually is an ex or, recently divorced. And that's when we're seeing those deadly violence taking place. So the most dangerous time, as you said, is when you're trying to leave a relationship. So how can I safety plan if I am trying to leave a relationship?
Yes, absolutely. It is different for every person. So I don't believe there is one canned safety plan to help all victims. It really depends. Do you have children? Do you own property? Have you been separated before? The things that we like to tell victims are to make sure you bring all your documents with you, bring your children with you, and do it in a manner where if you feel like he or she is going to strike back and prevent you from leaving the relationship, do it in a way that makes you safe. So you have to have a plan ahead of time. It may be that you're going to go stay with a friend or family member, but you may have to do it when your partner is at work. You may have to do it when your partner is sleeping or when your partner is out on an outing. So you just have to plan ahead. But we always want victims to bring their children with them. Sometimes they don't, and then we get into difficulty with a custody situation. So please bring your children with you. If you would like to see an attorney and get in a consult beforehand, a lot of our victims really want to get legal advice. That's okay too. If you've been in a relationship for a long time, a few more weeks or a few more months, you can probably manage that just to make sure you have a really good safety plan and to save your life.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people don't realize that you guys will help. Transitions and Samaritan House will help with a safety plan. With you making sure you have your important documents, making sure that you have everything you need so you can safely get out of that relationship. I guess, could you talk with us about the resources, the other things that you offer outside of shelter and safety planning? I know that sometimes you'll have someone available to go to court, transportation, things like that. Sanu, could you just give us an overview of everything that you guys offer?
Absolutely. So we have court advocates. They go to court in every locality that we serve, and they're there to help survivors navigate through the legal system. It can be very complex to understand what's happening when you're petitioning, to the hearings, to the follow-up, to when things are continued. And so our court advocates do an amazing job meeting with survivors and then also safety planning with them, no matter what the outcome of those proceedings are. And then we have youth advocates, which work with our youngest survivors who have witnessed or experienced violence. And it's really important for us to help them, verbalize or even sometimes depict through our art and play therapy program what they've experienced and get them started on that healing journey. but then also to advocate for them in the school system, and in their community groups, to make sure that, adults understand their experience and how they might act out or lash out, and the journey that they're on and how to support them. So it's not just the parent. We need teachers, we need counselors, to do that work as well. We also have our outreach program, where we not always work with survivors that want to be sheltered. They are resourced enough to find a place, but might need a little assistance with maybe utilities or relocation. And so we have a housing team that's able to assist them in community, whether that's moving or talking to their employer that they need to transfer to maybe another store, another location that's safer for them. And so doing some of that advocacy as well for them to make that transition as smooth as possible is really important. But I would urge folks, our number one program is our 24-hour hotline. That starts the conversation. It allows us to learn a little bit more about your situation and what's the best program for you.
And I know if anyone wants to reach out to Transitions or Samaritan House, I've created an entire page of resources in our area over on WAVY.com. All you have to do is search domestic violence awareness. It's all of the hotlines for every city in our area. So if you live in Portsmouth, there's resources for that 24/7. In Virginia Beach, Samaritan House, and in Hampton, Transitions, all over essentially. So yeah, thank you guys so much for talking with us today. I know domestic violence is not an easy conversation, but it is a necessary conversation. So I really do appreciate your time. I appreciate the work that you do as well.
And I just wanted to add, in the link on Facebook, we'll put the domestic violence resources as well. And there's also events this month where you can help raise awareness and help the organizations. And then something that you all were speaking about, before we went live, is that, help is needed all year long. And just to echo the sentiment that you all shared, as somebody that, has watched Kiahnna report and then also has been, a viewer for, reports and stories that she's done, I think that is something that, I know that she does throughout the year in trying to get the word out. And then I know from her work that you all obviously every day of the year are working towards it. So, just hoping the community follows suit, right? And does that all year long.
Yeah, I know that they have the Paint the Town Purple at the end of the month, right? What dates are those, Robin?
Paint 757 is all month long, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but the 19th is Wear Purple Day. Wear Purple
Day, yep. Okay. And then Transitions, you guys have a few events coming up as well.
We have tons of engagement and trainings. We are really focusing this month on getting into intimate spaces and having conversations with our partners on how they can assist us on the level that they can and what they have capacity for. So a lot of smaller, intimate conversations opposed to kind of our larger events where we're promoting wide awareness.
Absolutely. I know you guys are open to training. So employers, if you need domestic violence awareness training, just reach out to your local shelter and know what to look for with your coworkers. Tap in with them. So yeah, I think that is everything.
I just want to thank Kiahnna also. Thank you so much for just continuing this conversation. I know we amplify it in October, but you make sure that it's a point of conversation every day, every week. Thank you, and thank WAVY for just making this an important platform for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I echo those sentiments as well. Thank you so much, Kiahnna.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you. And I'll be in touch. You know that.
Sounds good.
All